As an IT professional, one of the most common questions I get is what computer should I buy? That's a great question, and honestly, it's confusing out there. Today, I'm going to cut through all the noise, skip the technical jargon, and keep things simple. By the end of this video, you'll have a cheat sheet you can take to the store so you know exactly what to look for before you purchase that new computer. Let's get into it. The first thing you want to check when buying a new computer is the CPU. The central processing unit is the brain of the computer, and you don't want a dumb computer. Since we're keeping it simple today, I'm going to use a metaphor: the kitchen. And in the kitchen, you can think of the CPU as the chef. You want a good chef. And you can dig and dig and dig. There's so many different generations, models, and types. You will get lost in that rabbit hole. So I'm going to keep it simple. These 9 CPUs right here, any of these CPUs are going to be amazing CPUs. These are your mid-range to high-range CPUs, and even the weakest one on the list is still a very good powerhouse CPU you can use in your work or personal computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop. If you come across a CPU that says Intel Core, but it's not Intel Ultra Core, know that that is actually the Intel I series, which you see on the screen. Intel just rebranded it, and it's now called Intel Core. So those are fine as well. Whenever you find a computer with one of these CPUs in it, the spec sheet will look something like this. It will be something similar to the Intel i7-14700K or the Ryzen 7 7800X3D. Nowadays, with everything being mobile and a lot of the companies focusing on saving battery life, if that CPU ends in a U, know that U is for battery saver. So whenever you're looking for a computer and you check the CPU, if you want something that focuses on saving battery over performance, make sure it ends in a U. Otherwise, you should be looking at a performance-focused CPU, and personally, that is what I would go for. Whether it's a laptop or a desktop, even the performance-focused CPUs are still going to be okay. They may not hold a charge as long as the battery-focused CPUs, but I prefer performance over battery life any day. But most websites nowadays, their bestsellers or the best rated computers are gonna have a CPU that ends in a U most likely, whether it's Intel or AMD. And that's just because a lot of people buy the battery saver CPUs versus the performance CPUs. And I think honestly, they don't even realize they're doing it. They just see on the website it has a bunch of reviews, positive reviews, and that's why they buy it. Those aren't bad computers at all. They just don't have as many performance cores as I'd like them to have. Now, I know I said I'm keeping this simple, and I don't want to confuse you too much, but there are 2 different types of cores. You have performance cores and efficient cores. And you can think of the cores in a CPU as the chef's arms, and the more arms it has, the more things it can do. Personally, I don't care about the efficient cores because they are weak cores. I like the performance cores. And with AMD, they might be called Zen cores or something like that. A lot of the Intel CPUs are hybrid, so you'll get 2 performance cores and 8 efficient cores, which is going to be a battery saver CPU. I like around 4 performance cores at least. That way, if I decide I want to game with the computer, I know I can. And also with performance cores, you just get that snappiness you're not going to get with efficient cores. So again, start with the CPU, make sure it's one of the 9 you've seen on the screen, and then ensure it ends in a U if you want a battery saver CPU, or ensure it doesn't end in a U if you don't want a battery saver CPU. The next thing we want to check is the RAM. RAM stands for random access memory. It acts as your computer's short-term memory. In today's metaphor, we're going to think of it as the chef's counter. The more RAM, the larger the counter, the more things the chef can lay down on that counter. The less RAM, the smaller the counter space is, and actually, the longer it takes for the chef to put things up and to pull things out. But what is enough RAM? In modern times with AI and everything else going on, the minimum amount of RAM you need is 16 gigabytes of RAM. And if you look at the cheat sheet here, there's a few things you want to check whenever you are looking at the RAM. First, you want to see, is it DDR4 or DDR5? Either will work fine. You just want to check the speeds. And when it comes to speeds, DDR4 maxes out at 3200 megahertz. And you'll be able to tell the speeds by the little number after DDR4. So you'll see 16 gigabytes, DDR4, 3200. That's fine. Anything less than that, I don't recommend. The latest generation is DDR5. So if you get DDR5 and it ends in 5200, that's fine. And anything above that is fine, but will most likely cost more. The price of RAM right now is ridiculous anyways. So you're probably going to find the best deal if the RAM is already in the computer you're buying. Don't quote me on that because that may not always be the case and the price could change tomorrow. So you want to make sure 16 gigabytes of RAM. But say you find a computer and it only has 8 gigabytes of RAM, but it's upgradable. That's completely fine. If you want to buy that and it's in your budget and you want to buy RAM on the side or you plan to buy RAM next paycheck, that's completely fine. The sweet spot though is 32 gigabytes. So if you can get up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, you're going to be cooking with fire. And honestly, it may be more RAM than most of you need, but I'm going to stick with the minimum being 16 gigabytes. Things to avoid is if it's soldered in or if it says onboard memory, know that it is soldered and you can upgrade it later. You don't want that because then you're going to have to buy a new computer whenever you should just be able to upgrade your RAM. You want to look for expandable or SODIMM whenever you're reading the RAM specs. It doesn't always say that online, like if you're shopping at Best Buy or something. They tend to have the very basic information. So you may have to, if you're looking at a PC and you like it, copy that model and do a quick Google search. Does this model have upgradable RAM? Perfect. The last thing you want to check when it comes to RAM is, does the computer have 2 slots for RAM? If you have 2 slots, you can use 2 sticks of RAM, and with 2 sticks, you get dual channel mode. It's a boost of performance, allowing your RAM to run at peak performance. Without that, you miss out on that added boost of performance. But how can you tell if the RAM has everything I just mentioned? Here is an image of a stick of RAM, what to avoid, what to look for. And on the computer, if you're at the store, you'll see the RAM read something like this image shows. It'll say the size, DDR4 or DDR5, and the speed. But most of the time, it's going to say 1 times 8 gigabyte DDR4 3200. If it says 1 times 8 gigabyte, that means there's one 8 gigabyte stick of RAM in it, and it should have another slot in it. It's just saying one is used. That's not always the case. If you see that and you want to be certain, just do a quick Google search. I know I said I want to keep things simple and this seems like a lot, but this will help you when buying a computer. And just take a picture of this. I'll have a cheat sheet with all of this at the end. So get to the end, or, for the overachievers, skip to the end, but leave a like. But anyway, let's move on to the computer's storage. There are a few things you want to check when it comes to the computer's storage space. Does it have at least 512 gigabytes? That's going to allow you to use it for your work or personal use. If you're using the computer for gaming, I would recommend 1 terabyte at least. And with the way things are going though in the future, a lot of stuff might actually be on the cloud. But here's a cheat sheet for anyone looking to buy a new computer. This is the cheat sheet when it comes to storage. You want to make sure you're avoiding anything that says SATA SSD. You also want to avoid anything that says HDD, hard disk drive. That's the older model. We want to stick with SSD NVMe M.2. It's the fastest and going to be the best option. It plugs right into the motherboard. So if it says SATA SSD, try to stay away from it. That uses the cable and it's just not as fast as the NVMe M.2. Also, minimum 512 gigabytes. And then last but not least, whenever you're looking at the spec sheet, it'll say 512 gigabyte SSD, NVMe M.2, Gen 3, 4, or 5. Try to get Gen 4 at least. Gen 5 is going to be more expensive. Gen 4 works almost just as well. I doubt you're going to see a difference. The main thing is you want to stick with SSD and make sure it's 512 gigabytes. A lot of stores online only show the basics. You may have to do a quick Google search for that particular computer model and just Google Dell, Latitude, whatever the model is, SSD specs. Just make sure you're Googling that PC model and not just the brand that PC is. That's it, guys. Here's the cheat sheet as promised. I hope this video helps someone out there. If so, drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more content. If you have trouble finding a computer online that's not a battery saver, try searching for gaming computers. You don't have to use it for gaming, but most gaming computers are going to be upgradable.